in Taiwan as Super Typhoon Nepartak slams into the islands. These pictures were live streamed just a short time ago from Taitung County along Taiwan's southeastern coast.
Yeah, this is James Reynolds, who's a storm chaser that we spoke with last hour, in fact, and he's telling us that we're seeing wind gusts of almost 300 kilometres an hour, and this is a storm that could dump a metre of rain on the eastern coast of the island. Also some dramatic video I want to show you here, Man versus Nature.
Oh, goodness.
Have a look at that. You can see who's winning in Man versus Nature there.
Yeah, it appears the security guard in Taitung was trying to secure these doors when that gust blew open those doors and took over. Wow, that is frightening.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community. On the technical side, greenhouse gas emission reductions would still have to accompany SAI to address other climate change effects, such as ocean acidification, because SAI alone would not remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere.
A freak waterspout was captured by onlookers on Saturday just off the coast of Playa Caimito in southern Cuba. Witnesses say they saw as many as 7 waterspouts take form before running for their own safety. Many took shelter inside homes not built for such severe storms. Among them was Madeline Barban, who credits her neighbor's quick thinking with saving her children.
It was an enormous disaster. My kids and I were inside my home, and thank God my neighbor put my kids under the bed. I was in the living room with all the rubble on top of me. It was horrible.
Waves of up to 16 feet in height crashed along the shore, toppling an estimated 30 homes and properties. At least 38 people were injured in the storm, though no fatalities have been reported. Caught off guard, locals now face the task of building back what
Next
they
tonight
can.
here to an alarming investigation into doctors across this country who authorities say sexually abused their patients without them knowing. ABC's chief investigative correspondent Brian Ross working with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on the doctors, some of whom are still practicing.
It happened in a hospital room as she regained consciousness and her doctor leaned over.
I remember him kissing me on the lips and then physically manipulating my hand to basically rub him.
Aaron Vance of Oregon is now speaking out about what has happened to thousands of women in this country sexually abused by their doctors.
He said, "It's okay, this is just how we wake you up."
Her doctor, the anesthesiologist, Dr. Frederick Field, was sentenced to 23 years in prison for assaults on at least 12 women. According to a first-of-its-kind 50-state survey out today from an investigative team at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, more than 2,400 American doctors have been disciplined for sexually abusing their patients in the last 16 years. And quietly, more than half of them were allowed to keep their medical licenses.
Some of these doctors are the most prolific sex offenders in the country.
But often those doctors escape serious punishment. Dr. David Mata, a family practitioner, once praised in Congress as a great humanitarian, pleaded guilty in 2011 to 6 felony counts of sexual acts with female patients, but received only probation, no prison. When we went to see Dr. Mata at his California home, he refused to show his face, but maintained his innocence.
You're hiding behind a door here. I want to ask you, did you violate your oath? Did you violate those patients?
I'm going to make no comment on that.
Dr. Mata's medical license was initially revoked, but he is now eligible to reapply for it.
Saudi Arabia is trying to reassure its citizens about security after a wave of deadly terror attacks. Suicide bombers blew themselves up yesterday at 3 locations across the kingdom. One attack was close to a U.S. diplomatic post in Jeddah. The others were near mosques. The blast in Medina, at one of Islam's holiest sites, killed 4 people. Charlie D'Agata is following developments for us in London. Charlie, good morning.
Good morning. U.S. officials tell CBS News that ISIS is a leading candidate among suspects for the attacks. Saudi authorities say they've identified the bomber outside the U.S. consulate in Jeddah, a 35-year-old Pakistani national who's been living in Saudi for 12 years. And they're investigating the support network behind the attack in Medina. The bomber only got as far as the parking lot, but it was close enough to the Prophet's Mosque to make a symbolic impact. One that will resonate with Muslims around the world, targeting Islam's second holiest site. When he blew himself up, he took 4 security guards with him. It could have been much worse. Large crowds had gathered for sunset prayers. The heat caused nearby cars to catch fire and explode. 3 attacks in one day in the kingdom, including one apparently targeting the U.S. consulate, is unprecedented. And they coincide with a wave of ISIS-linked mass killings across the globe that have left hundreds dead. In Iraq, the staggering death toll from a suicide bomb that tore through a bustling shopping district in Baghdad at the weekend makes it Iraq's single deadliest terror attack in years. It came only a week after the Iraqi military announced a complete victory over ISIS in Fallujah. Yet even as the militant group suffers losses on the battlefield, it's intensifying its global campaign of terror. Launching a triple suicide bombing and shooting spree at Turkey's main airport that left more than 40 dead. And the ISIS attack on a cafe over the weekend in Bangladesh that killed 20 hostages. And the list just goes on. Just this morning, there is a suicide bombing in Indonesia linked to ISIS. Attacks like Iraq are launched by the militants themselves. Others have been directed. And with Bangladesh, locals inspired by the group, but all operating under the banner of ISIS.
Solo que estoy viendo. Se ve bonito, ¿verdad?